Hey guys, we're going to get started on your first design task. So I want you to build a pattern or like a wallpaper design using mainly the shape tool that you've learned about in the previous videos. On the left side here, you'll see that I've got an image for a bit of inspiration. This is a pattern inspired by the Memphis group. So you could give them a Google and they might be able to give you some tips in the direction that you could take in your designs. They use really simple shapes that we can easily draw using our shape tool. So I'm going to start by drawing. I might start with a nice polygon. So I'm not going to directly copy this design because that's not what we do as designers. We draw inspiration from others, but then we try and give it our own flair. Now, using the copy and paste feature that I showed in the previous video, where I use Control and Alt, I can place these kind of randomly across my page. And I'm going to do that like so. And as you can see, it's really efficient and it's the best way to copy and paste because I can actually choose where my designs are going to be placed. Excellent. I have a whole bunch now. What I want to do is I want to make them all the same color. Now I could click on one and then change that color, and then I could click on the other and I could click on the other, but that is a really inefficient way of working, and Illustrator is all about working quickly and efficiently. So what I'm going to do, using my selection tool, I'm going to highlight all of these shapes at the same time. Try not to highlight your title. We can see now that I've got all these shapes selected. So if I double click the fill square, which is now black, and let's say I change it to a nice bright green, it'll actually change the shape color of all my shapes, which is exactly what I wanted. This design is really interesting because it uses these squares and then has a black outline overlaying the top. So I might try and do a similar thing, but maybe not exactly the same. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of my designs like so, and then I'm going to hold Control and Alt, and I'm going to copy and paste all of them at the same time. And then I'm going to bring them out about here. And as I can see, they're all still green, so they don't actually differentiate from the original shapes that I use. So I'm going to make them a slightly different color. And I might make yellow like so. So they have a nice blend with that green. And instead of making them a fill, I'm going to change them all to just an outline by clicking that little arrow like I demonstrated in the previous video. I can already see that they're a bit light in the way they've been stroked. So I'm going to adjust the stroke and make it a bit thicker. And as you can see, it's made it a bit more vibrant, a bit more engaging. I'm going to select the white space now to deselect all my shapes. And I can see it's starting to build a really kind of interesting looking pattern. It's a bit random, it's a bit all over the place, but that's kind of what Memphis is. I'm then going to use my ellipse tool to create some interesting ovals. And right now they're just drawing as a yellow outline because that's what the previous shape did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click that little arrow again. Now they're a yellow fill. And I'm going to change the fill color to something a little bit different. I might use a nice blue. And again, I'm going to use my copy and paste feature. And I'm going to drag these throughout my design like so, placing them kind of at random because that's how Memphis Design often operates. So I'm going to push these around the page. And right now it's not looking too bad, but I feel like my circles could change a little bit, so I'm going to resize them. I'm going to hold down Shift as I resize them so they stay in proportion. And that way, by having them at slightly different sizes, I might create an interesting sense of scale. And it will create probably, hopefully, a more interesting feature overall. We can see my design now starting to take shape. I think it's a little bit big, so what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to select everything on the page. And now that it's selected all these elements, I'm going to resize them all at the same time. So if I go to my corner, I click and hold, I can then drag and form them as a bit smaller on the page. Now that I've got all of those selected as well, I can hold down Control and Alt, and I can copy and paste them all across my page. And that will make a really interesting looking pattern. I might have to have some gaps in between at certain points, and then go back and fill them with copied and pasted elements. But we can see it's actually looking quite engaging, and it didn't take particularly long. So that's your first task, guys, is to develop an interesting pattern. You can use mine as a bit of a basis, but I would like to see your own original creations. Good luck.